Anyway, without further ado, please do give a big, strong round of applause for Fabs and Andrew.
I just want to start by saying it's a privilege to be up here with the greatest planner in Australia. So thanks, Fabs, for having me.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, guys. How you going? I thought we'd start just with something that's not MLA, just to get the ball rolling, and then we'll move on from there.
When you're given a death sentence, you really reevaluate what it's all about.
I went in and had some tests, and they discovered that I had an enormous tumour on my pancreas. I had pancreatic cancer.
There's nothing like this to focus what you really want.
We've got all this stuff raining down on us constantly about what we could get and what we should get, that it just skews our entire thinking.
It used to be really important for me to have the best car, the nicest car to drive and all that sort of thing, whereas I really don't care anymore about the small things.
It's nice to have nice things, but when they stretch you to the limit, when acquiring them stretches you to the limit, that's when I look at people now and I think, whoa, slow down.
And focus on the things that you really like doing, and you'll find that everything strikes a balance, and you'll be so much happier in yourself.
And if you're working your butt off to own a house that you're probably going to be paying off your whole life. Some people don't ever pay off their mortgage because they're so overstretched.
What actually are you buying for yourself? You're buying a future that you may well not have, and it's a big assumption.
It's not about having, but it's about doing, and it's about being with people and being for people.
That is humanity. That's what it's all about. It's not about your bricks and mortar. It's what you put into those bricks and mortar.
So the word taboo is quite a weird word. I don't think I've used that word probably for about 15 years, maybe looking it up in the dictionary or something like that. So when Nicole mentioned it, it was quite an odd choice. But something for me that just talks about doing something provocative, doing something quite controversial. And that campaign there probably was one of the first things that came to mind when she gave me the subject. And, what right does a bank have to use actually really terminally ill people, some of whom have already passed away since we shot that, to try and sell mortgages? And when you go back to what's happening in culture and how people are just spending without thinking about the consequence on their life. Everyone's trying to get a bigger house. Money's really cheap at the moment, and we're just overstretching ourselves in general. And you look at the bank, and they've got a really, really strict lending policy that doesn't let you borrow beyond your means. Like you can't borrow as much with NAB, who's the parent company, and with UBank as all the other banks out there. Okay, so they try and limit it. So you're not going over beyond what you can possibly afford to do. And for us, that gave us legitimacy to play in that space. And if we're going to break people out of that just crazy cycle of spending, we had to do something pretty provocative to try and arrest that. And that's where that campaign came from. We got a lot of hate emails from it, from friends within the industry saying you should give up now, should walk away. That's what an awful fucking thing you've done. Using people like that. And some of you might be feeling that way as well, but the intent behind it, and Palliative Care Australia, who we worked with on that, they were really, really into it and wanted to use these people to tell their story because they believed in it as well. And if anyone can change the way you're thinking and snap you out of it, it's people who've got that perspective, probably a perspective hopefully no one in the room here will have longer term. And it was just a really interesting way into tackling the problem. And I think similarly with MLA, and with UBank, they really push us into these places to tackle these what could be taboo kind of areas and subjects, and try and get a lot of conversation going with people around them.
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Andrew. Fabs and I caught up a couple of weeks ago when we were invited along today, and I like spending time with Fabio. He's the greatest planner in Australia. And whenever we catch up, I feel like I walk away smarter than when I met him. So I love you, man. Anyway, so when we caught up, this idea of taboo came up, and when the email came through, the word taboo was about 5 times in the email, and I said, yeah, I'll do it, just stop saying taboo, you're freaking me out. It's just not a word that you hear very often, and when you're kind of taboo, I was like, whoa. Anyway, so the first thing that came to mind for me when we were talking about it was often perspective around what is and isn't taboo is judged at the time the work is done, but then, you think, there was a time when making an ad like this, blow in the face and she'll follow you anywhere, was okay. Not today. But what's interesting is at the time that ad was made, that was okay. And we evolve, and what isn't acceptable in culture progresses, and so often the work that we set out to make in being controversial, one day won't be as controversial as it was in the time we made it. Or vice versa. Maybe the topics we're tackling might become more controversial. But the idea of same-sex marriage seems to be this like uptight thing at the moment. But I can guarantee you, in a couple of years' time, we'll be going, "Why don't we do it sooner?" All these things that we're trying to tackle at the moment, you get judged by the values of a different time. So when we're talking about taboo, I thought it was interesting to start with. We've come a long way in what we do and don't accept in the work that we do. I get heaps of hate mail as well, so don't worry, Fabs, you're not alone there. Generally from your vegetarian types. Probably from you, mate. Have you got that four fake email addresses or something?
I hate myself.
But we have fun working together, and I guess at the end of the day, if you're going to make work that's controversial or pushing the boundaries, then you have to stand by each other, and you actually have to kind of back each other up. Yeah, thanks, man. Just a bit lower. What we thought we'd do today was start with some taboo work that Fabs has done, something that I still think is quite funny, that someone actually ever made that ad and it was all right. And now we're going to sort of take you on a bit of a journey of some of the taboo that we've done together. And it took quite a while to come out that you're a vegetarian. That was sort of a taboo topic, I guess, for a while. And it was actually the Christmas lunch at in King's Cross somewhere. Was it? Yeah, the monkey's lunch. And one of your partners was standing up to give me a speech, and he announced that, and my boss was there at the time, and you're pale at the best of times. You went really pale when that came out. Anyway, so we're going to get into a little bit about the monkeys now, so I'll hand back to Fabs.
Thank you. I did have to keep it a secret. I remember when we were pitching on the business, one of Andrew's colleagues asked me what my favourite kind of meat was, and was it lamb or beef, and I said, I like them both. I can't decide. So it was a pretty tricky one to navigate all the way through. But clients are pretty passionate. They don't like people who don't use their product to work on their accounts. But, we work on flavoured milk. I don't drink milk. Don't eat meat. I don't gamble. We've worked on gambling brands. So
boring, dude.
Yeah, but I like drinking.
Yeah, we do.
No, I like drinking. That's okay. So look, just some background into the monkeys. So how we talk about ourselves is we've got this essence of provocative thinking. Okay, that's the very, very core of our brand. It's our DNA. It's something we defined many, many years ago. It's something that clients come to us for. So when Howie walks in the door, he knows he's not going to get something safe, something familiar, that we're going to push it and try and do something very challenging. It binds our culture together. Okay, so whenever we have we give someone like a performance review, the first thing we ask is how have you made provocative ideas happen with your clients and within the business. So it's the number one filter we put on everything within the agency to make sure that we're all delivering to that one standard. And look, at the end of the day, it keeps us really honest. We just sit around and say, is this provocative enough? And the proposition, like normal agencies have a proposition section, we have a provocative thought. So when it's not provocative, you feel like shit. And it's just embarrassing. It doesn't deliver to the standard that we want. So it is a filter for absolutely everything we do. It makes us feel uncomfortable sometimes. It can make our clients feel uncomfortable. We'll talk about the lamb work, and there's some conjecture around that at every step of the way for the one we did this year. So it's good to learn more about that, but it is the beating heart of who we are and what we do. And it's not just provocation for the sake of it. It's really with purpose. We provoke with purpose. Everything we do, like the Eubank thing, is to achieve a proper purpose in market. It's just not to be a tool or just to provoke for the sake of being arrogant or for the sake of just getting some news. There's a genuine purpose behind what we're doing.
So I work for MLA, Meat and Livestock Australia. It's actually an uber serious business. Ironically, we represent red meat farmers. That's a pretty serious job. We do marketing, we do research and development. It's a unique company in that we're a statutory organisation, which is fancy chat for the government pays us to do stuff. So farmers pay a levy, the government collects that, and then the money is distributed into MLA. So we have a complex and often ball ache process we have to go through to consult, get feedback, input from a lot of people. So it's very serious. Quite a few years ago, the guy whose job I now do, David Thomason, he decided that marketing should be a profit centre and not a cost centre, and actually said, well, we don't have big budgets relative to the industry we represent, so we need to make those budgets go further. And so the organisation as a whole bought into this concept of making provocative work and being disruptive, with the intent of allowing that money to go further. I'm just lucky enough to have that job at the moment and keep trying to push it forward and hope that the place is in better state when I leave than when I found it. So it's an interesting organisation. There's a very serious side to it. ROI is at the heart of everything we do. We have to be able to measure it and prove that we've returned on that investment. And we measure that yearly, and then every 5 yearly we have to go through a government review. So really serious, and heaps of fun in between all that serious stuff. So looking forward to sharing some of that work with you today.
Why is being taboo important for you?
It generates earned media.
Good answer. They've got a small budget, like they don't have a huge budget, but you know, it punches well above its weight. And we get clients coming to us all the time asking us to do an MLA and trying to find a way through, or thinking, you know, we don't have a very big budget, but it's actually bigger than what these guys spend. Yet they can't make an impact with it because they're too safe, they're too conservative, and they're just not, you know, tapping into something societally big that can provoke a really good response from people. So what is taboo? It's a weird word. It's just, it doesn't feel real. It doesn't. Where did it come from? It was just given to you, right? Or did you choose? Did you choose it? Okay. Cool. Helsinki. Awesome.
All great ideas come.
Awesome. It just is we've talked about it. It's an odd word. It's who the hell's used this in the last month in natural conversation? Really? You have? What was the context? Fair enough. You got me there. Okay.
I did not see that coming.
No. Look, the dictionary definition, it's always good to have a definition. So it's a social or religious custom prohibiting or restricting a particular practice or forbidding association with a particular person, place or thing. So many taboos have been developed around physical exposure, which is a really good thing in a lot of cases, and the use of violence must remain a taboo in our society. Okay, so it's a pretty straight definition of it there. And I think when we go through the LAM work now, you can see how we've tried to challenge that and take that on in a really provocative kind of way. Anything you want to add to that? Good. Okay, let's talk about LAM. Now, I think we're going to show you an old Sam Kekovich ad. So this is before Andrew and I started working on the business, and hopefully you'll see a real strong deviation away where we've taken the brand and what we're trying to create together. Yeah, do some background.
So Australia Day started as a marketing program in the early 2000s. It was actually a period of the lowest sales across the whole year. Spring was the highest sales period due to the flush of rain that would come, so there's more green grass for the sheep to eat, so they had better feed quality, better quality meat. But by the time you kind of got into summer, where it was dry, there wasn't as much grass, and so we actually saw declines after Christmas, which is predominantly dominated by pork and poultry. And so the decision was made we need to try and build an association between the two. Early on in the campaign's life, we used a guy called Ostentatious, claims to be a comedian. It's a loose terminology. Fabio's the greatest planner in the country, also loose. So, you can claim to be whatever you want. Anyway, so it didn't go too well for the first couple of years. We decided we needed to keep pushing on with the campaign, and so we then found this washed up old football player who none of his fingers are straight and both his knees are cactus. And he was doing this shtick on football shows where he'd kind of rant and just talk really monotonously about shit he was unhappy about. And we thought that would be pretty funny if he just spoke about all the shit that he was unhappy about for the country. So this is 2006. This is probably about 2 or 3 years into Slam and Sam Kekovich delivering his spiel. I love these old ads because they kind of like a little time capsule. And when you put this ad on, this will give you just a really quick snapshot of where Australia was at in 2006, early 2006, and the kind of stuff that we were trying to deal with. So enjoy early days of Sam. Oh yeah, so this also gives you a snapshot into where we're at with production values in 2006 and the internet.
My fellow Australians, incidents of un-Australian behaviour over the past year was enough to make me choke on my lamb chops. And it was all down to one thing: not enough lamb. For example, Australian models holidaying in Asia would get in a lot less trouble if they carried a couple of lamb chops in their handbags. Lamb could have prevented the buffheads perpetrating violence on our beaches. It's bloody hard to bash someone with a cutlet. And we might not have lost the Ashes if our cricketers picked up lamb chops instead of mobile phones. Why on earth did they dispatch lurid text messages to English trollops when plenty of Aussie shielders would gladly target their middle stump? Yet as mishaps spread across the land like bird flu through a Chinese chicken coop, what were we doing about it? Bugger all. It's time to remind ourselves of what lies at the core of our national identity. A lamb chop and a barbie. Being Australian doesn't mean you have to call the opposition captain a wanker, even if he is, or smother everything in tomato sauce till it resembles an outpatient in a casualty ward, or pull on a pair of budgie smugglers. I prefer you didn't. And you don't have to spend every Friday night on the piss till your best friend looks like Elle Macpherson. Throw up in a cab, then trip over the garden gnome before passing out on your front lawn. In fact, to be as Australian as I am, don your apron. Mine says chop gun. Whack some nice juicy lamb chops on the barbie, invite everyone over. If you can't pronounce their name, just call them mate and celebrate living in the best bloody country on earth. So don't be un-Australian. Serve lamb on Australia Day. You know it makes sense. I'm Sam Kekovich.
I still think it's funny. My sense of humour is not the same as the rest of the country, so I kind of have to take that into consideration when we're doing work as well. But, as I said, Michelle Leslie getting caught with a couple of pingers in a handbag, Cronulla riots, Aussies losing the cricket. I love 2006. What a great time. But, what that was based on is even though it was Eat Lamb on Australia Day, it was kind of you're either with us or against us. It was kind of an exclusive strategy. And so when we started working together with the Monkeys a couple of years ago, that the idea of unity is much more about inclusivity. And so we shifted from saying you're with us or against us to inviting everyone to be with us. So do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah.
Fabio, greatest planner in the country.
Thank you. Yeah, look, when we had the opportunity to pitch on the business, we wanted to move it forward, move it on. It felt like there was a time for Lamb to try and be a bit more progressive in how it spoke. And it also it comes in for Australia Day, but then do something completely random and different for spring every year. And there wasn't any connective tissue really holding it together. So when we looked at it and we stripped it all back, we said, what should we do with every brand? So this is brand nerdy stuff, but we try and find the positioning for it. And for us, the beating heart wasn't national pride and Sam Kekovich like it had been in the past. For us, it was this idea of unity, so bringing people together. And when we dug into the research on lamb, we'd seen that it's the most shared red meat or meat in market. You don't make a lamb roast for yourself and just eat it by yourself at home. Howie probably does, but not many other people would sit there and just gouge through it. It is something you share. It's more expensive as well, so you want to disperse the cost around more people. And then when we looked at it from a societal point of view, there was tension building around Australia, who we are, our identity as a nation, Australia Day, what it means. You can really see that coming through now. And it was just starting to happen at the time. And you could feel this undercurrent of uncertainty in who we are really bubbling through. So we thought Lamb could play a really beautiful role in standing for unity and being one of these foundation brands that can hold us all together. Well, that was the intent behind it anyway. So the creative guys came back with a thought, which is you never lamb alone, which is tapping into a truth about the product, tapping into that idea in society that we are starting to break away. We're starting to lose our identity. And it just became a rally cry. And I guess when we look for it, it's a brand platform that holds everything together for the brand across the year. Okay. Now we're going to show you the first ad. And the first ad we did for this was in spring. It was a bit of a rush job, but we just had to get the platform out there as best we can. There's nothing taboo about it at all. It's really safe, it's conservative, it's a bit boring. But what it does do is it shows you where we started and how we've taken the brand on a journey, okay? Before this, I think Lamb was doing stuff in spring that was about like tactical, the smell of l'homme, pretending to be a fragrance and just taking the piss and being quite just tactical and being a bit of a joker around it. So we're just trying to establish this positioning before we went really crazy with it in market.
There you go.
Thanks.
So there's a couple of interesting things. It's still got like the Lamb irreverent sense of humour in there. You know, the guy falls off his bike and, you know, the bus. But I think the important thing, you know, it was kind of safe in a lot of ways, but to build up to the kind of work we're doing today, you have to go through steps and have stepping stones. I don't think you can just wake up one day and make ads about gay marriage. And float people, you know, you kind of have to build to those things. And so we'd gone from being tactical and talking about real product benefits, I guess, you know, lamb tastes better in spring. It's, you know, the food that you serve to people you love. And so this platform, If You Never Lamb Alone, kind of needed some context. So we started with this ad and it worked, you know, like we ran it for 2 years in the end because it was so successful. We kind of, there's an autumn version where she orders a roast instead of cutlets. So, you know, the work was working and we were still trying to kind of grow into this idea of unity and what it felt like and sort of getting comfortable in our own skin around that. So we did all that work. And I don't know if just one tip, if you ever work with a stunt guy, they all worked on The Matrix. I guarantee you that. And the guy who drove that truck, anytime with the bus, every time we'd stop for a break, he'd be like, "Oh yes, I was on The Matrix. Did you know that?" And I was like, "Mate, you've told me 8 times, all right?" So every stunt guy always worked on The Matrix if they're any good at being a stunt guy. So that was the learning out of that shoot. So then what we had was a problem where Australia Day had been all about Sam Kekovich talking about, you know, it makes sense. And with Unity now in the play, we had to try and think about how we would shift that. And what's interesting is that ad you just saw was actually an idea that was presented in the pitch. So we bought that and made it. And then this idea that we're about to see now was also presented in the pitch as a beef idea. And we loved it so much that we found a way to make it work for lamb. So pretty much the first time in history a client has bought 2 ideas out of a pitch and made them. So I think that's why Greenie still likes me, because he's pretty tight with his money and he basically got a return on both of those ideas. But we'll play this now because this is probably, I still hold this up as probably the most close to my heart in all the ads I've ever made. And yeah, probably still the proudest thing I've... No, there's nothing taboo in it. Oh, yeah, it's pretty white. Let's play it.
I love it. There's my glass.
Richie.
Cookie, where are you?
Don't know. What's up?
Can you make an Australia Day barbie at my place? Bit of cricket, couple of lamb chops. You in?
Yeah, all right.
I love those cutlets.
Yeah, is Bert coming?
Barbecue? Yeah, I'm keen. Wills?
Yeah, keen.
He's keen.
So lovely, Richie. I'll round up the gang.
Stop! Shut up! I'm on the board! Stop!
Get in touch with Bradman.
No answer.
Typical.
A barbie, Richie. I'd love to.
Brilliant.
I'll make the Lemingtons.
2 for 22.
1 sec, Ida.
Australia Day barbie at your joint, I hear.
Nope.
I'm busy, Richie.
Come on, Sam.
All right, I'm in. You know what I'm bringing? And it's not tofu.
So everyone's in?
Yeah, stoked.
Too right.
Affirmative. Fantastic.
Hang on. Ned, haven't you gone veggie?
That's a shame.
No, I'm gluten intolerant.
That's not even a real thing.
It is a real thing. It's in my family. My mother had it, my father had it. No,
You're delusional, Ned.
I'm not a veg. I like lamb.
Marvellous. Lamb's on.
We're going to need some ice.
Why don't you bring ice? You never bring anything.
Barbecue, Richie! Spin this bad boy around.
Another piece of trivia with that one, it was originally cast with Bob Hawke instead of Richie Benaud, which would have been awesome. And he said yes initially, but then his agent told him, what the fuck are you doing, without speaking to me first. And it all fell to pieces, unfortunately. But it worked really good with Richie. And look, it was probably, the only criticism we really got on that one is it's a bit too white bread. You know, where's the diversity? It's largely white men. But Sam did play a more scale back role, which you can see from where he was right in front and centre. So we wanted to start to transition away from his role in the brand. And you'll see it again in the next one we do with Operation Boomerang, which really had a crack at our vegan friends as well, which you can never anticipate the response you'll get from it, but it's the most complained about ad in Australian history, okay? But it's also the most effective. So we won the Grand Prix for this because it was so effective and how much volume it drove.
So another thing that's probably worth talking about is that we run quite detailed feedback loops. So, you know, we listen to the commentary that goes on around the ads that we have and we try and address that feedback. And so the commentary about the fact that it was just a whole bunch of white dudes and Ita, who's also really white, in an ad. So we're like, okay, yeah, no, that's a fair point. And also kind of started, if you think about it, it shows Captain Cook arriving. And so there was sort of sensitivities around that we were just kind of busy making something funny and we'd kind of missed all those things. So it was a bit of an awakening for us. So we had to be a bit more plugged into what was going on in culture. And so instead of using a whole bunch of white guys this time, we said, well, what's the antithesis of that? And we got an Indonesian-born female spinster as the lead. So I'll hand back to Fabs.
No worries. I didn't know where you were going right then.
Not right.
Oh, good.
Warsaw, winter, 96. -17, and not a char-grilled chop in sight. That was no way to spend Australia Day. We'll never let that happen to another Australian again. Commence Operation Boomerang.
Right now, there's thousands of Australians stranded overseas. The snowball's chance in hell of eating lamb on Australia Day. Let's go get them.
My finger's warm. That's bad. Let's go.
今日はありがとうございます。
We're bringing you home for Australia Day.
You've been here 3 months. It's time to go home.
Well, mate, a few hours you'll be eating lamb on the beach.
But I'm a vegan now.
Abort. Get him out of there.
Vegans.
Sorry, Mitch. No one retires from backyard cricket. Gary, get out of the pool.
We're coming home, folks, and not a minute too soon. The kookaburra has landed.
So, are we smelling the lamb?
Yes, Prime Minister, the barbecue is lit.
Well done.
Well done. Never.
So I've got a little 3-year-old boy, and this is his favourite ad. He always goes, "Daddy, can we watch Kukuku?" And that's Sam Kekovich's impersonation of a kookaburra. And so, you know, this one, interesting. We cut it together, and it was really long. It was kind of like 3 minutes or something. It was really long. And I was on holidays, which was quite nice. I was at the beach up near Hawke's Nest. The sun was out, you know. Sorry, I got distracted. But Hawke's Nest has got no mobile phone reception. Interesting point, I guess. But I was up at the car park holding my phone in the air trying to download the edit so I could see it. was like a Thursday night. It was due to go out the next day. And it was like a Tuesday. I was like, it's too long, guys. You got to shorten it. So Scott Noel, the ECD, couldn't get any more out of the editors that he was using. So he jumped on a plane, flew to Melbourne to visit another guy that he knew who'd been on holidays with Greenie, who'd worked out how to solve it. And so they edited all day Wednesday. I saw it again on Thursday and said it's good to go, and it was live Friday morning. So it actually went from about 3 minutes down to 2. And at some point in that editing process, this like 2 seconds of footage where this guy had a flamethrower and he was torching kale and tofu kind of snuck into the edit. And it was such a rush job to try and get out the door. We're just kind of like, that's pretty funny. Anyway, the fucking internet erupted about 2 seconds in the middle of that whole thing. Like, don't worry about all the other shit in there that's wrong. It was just the fact that this guy who'd actually been doing yoga in his Brooklyn apartment, so that's why he was on the ground, the door fell down and it looks like he's cowering in the corner. It's just because he'd been doing yoga. And that context fell out, and then the flamethrower came in. Man, like, everyone was running at me that week. I had the ASB on the phone 4 times going, what have you done? I was like, I don't know, man. It's cool, huh? And so they had to call a special meeting for the Advertising Standards Board. Normally they kind of send you all the letters and you get a month to respond. And they're like, well, your campaign's not very long, so we're going to have to hold a special meeting in 2 weeks. Can you get organised? I was like, yeah, well, we're a responsible advertiser. We'll make it happen. And they got a phone call going, they're still coming in. You're going to have to do it in a week. I was like, man, you're starting to push it. Like, how are we going to put a case together? And I was like, yeah, it's fine. Look, at the end of the day, it's all inside the rules. And so we were let off, despite getting about 800 complaints, which was more than Ashley Madison that was promoting infidelity. And I think at the time it was the most complained about ad, but Ultratune have tried to steal that office with those girls wearing rubber. So hey, good on them for trying to take the mantle office. But yeah, just like it was by accident. We've had jokes over time with vegetarians, but I don't think we could have predicted the kind of eruption that we got there. Bless you. But there was some feedback again that came through, which was, okay, so we need to be more inclusive. And actually that scene around the vegetarians was actually viewed as being exclusive again, which wasn't its intent. So we're like, okay, we need to take that on board and try and work out how we can solve it. And so I kicked the ball back into Fabs and said, all right, mate, where are we going to go next?
And then we went to Spring.
Hi, I'm Luke Jacobs with a Z, and I'm here to address concerns that too many perky white males are contributing to a lack of diversity on our screens.
We couldn't agree more. Hey, Sakura. Hey, Mustafa. So we're getting together over the ultimate cross-cultural protein to help put this right. We've got everyone in the room.
Well, technically, it's not a room.
Hey, let's not be spaces. Exactly. Hey, Dad. Shh. Sorry. We've got all the stands. Got Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and this guy, Stan. People of color? I mean, who isn't? Oh, we've got our white whites, translucent whites, beige whites, red whites, and our dark whites who are darker than the light dark guys.
It's a thing.
All religions, faiths, and beliefs.
Can I talk to you about Jesus?
Yeah, sure.
He's talking the footy.
It's Jesus.
Jesus. Ooh, thank you. Oh, and of course, Jordan's here. She's Greek.
And proud.
Do you know what the best thing is about diversity? Everything. So let's stop talking about it and get together over the meat that doesn't discriminate. Right. Lamb's ready. So, who was here first?
That'd be us.
Right, you are.
The end of that one just makes the hairs on my neck stand up because we were here first, and that really gave a strong segue into what we did this year for Australia Day. But it's a very proud moment, I think, for us that we had that and that we were able to put together the diversity message for everyone, particularly coming off the back of Boomerang, where we did ostracize a small segment of the population, the vegans out there, my mates. And Howie did come back and say, look, how do we make it more inclusive and how do we keep evolving this great brand platform that we've developed? And there was a great insight, Waleed Ali, who talked about the lack of diversity on our screens was like a really hot topic. You had all the stop the boats bullshit. all that really anti-multiculturalism sentiment coming through in Australia as well. The rise of Pauline Hanson coming through, who it was really scary times, and it just felt like a really great opportunity for the brand to go out there and really fly the flag of diversity for springtime in a way that could really, really hopefully segue into what we're going to do with Australia Day.
So I guess getting back more into sort of the creative space, it's one of the challenges I think in making this kind of work is you have to create enough humour for different people to get things out of it, because the ads are designed to be for everyone, for all Australians, and not everyone has the same sense of humour. There's an Australianism to our humour, but there's a bunch of gags in that ad you just saw there, some of which we wrote and we're just like, that's the funniest shit I've ever heard. And then it doesn't translate onto screen. There was the Mormon saying, can I talk to you about Jesus? And then he points to a South American guy whose name is Jesus. And when we wrote it, we're like, and Scotty wrote it, I just go, man, that's really funny. And we're like, oh, how about the Mormon gag? And then no one ever laughs at it. So I always like to point it out because I really like it. But there's a whole bunch of stuff in there that's kind of, that as individual topics is taboo. Jordan Raskopoulos is part of a band called Axis of Evil, Axis of Awesome. And he is now a she, or in the process of becoming a she. And so as a transgender, we included her in the ad, but it wasn't because she was transgender, and that was the fun part, it was because she was Greek. You've got a whole bunch of Stans, including a guy called Stan from Sudan. We tried to cover off a whole bunch of stuff and really just kind of poke fun at the fact that Australian television is the whitest of everything. You just have to turn on any channel. It's really hard, except for Waleed, to try and find someone who's not white. And so we wanted to poke fun at that and just kind of create an ad that said, you know what, there's more to Australia than what you see on our TV screens at the moment. And that worked its socks off as well. I think we drove, it's dwarfed in Australia Day sense, but I think it was more than 5% sales increase for the 3 weeks that campaign was in market. So, that's actually, the brief was to deliver an Australia Day-esque impact outside of the Australia Day cycle. And so that was the first year we've done it. You'll see that on TV again in a couple of weeks. So we're kind of bringing that diversity work back into market, and we're actually going to be doing a pop-up restaurant where you can pay with any foreign currency you've got in your drawers. So if you've got some rupee or some baht in the drawer, come down with your 40 baht, which is about $1, and you can have a great feed. We're still in the process of trying to work out where that is, but it'll be in May, so keep an eye out for that. So that campaign actually, whilst it's spring-esque, is designed to be a platform for 12 months. And, to Fabs' point, Kathy Freeman, who's an appalling actress, but a beautiful person, delivered a really impactful line in the middle of all that, which was basically claiming they were here first. We're getting the wind-up. I thought we were here till 10:15. You started late.
Are you winding up?
Yeah, we're getting cut off. We only got 45.
And look, a bit of controversy on that one. Howie was really upset with the lens flare in the beginning of that ad.
We're going to miss out on heaps of craft awards because of that.
Anyway, so that one there led us to this year's Australia Day. And the elephant in the room with Australia Day has always been Indigenous Australia and how it does exclude one big segment of the population, the rightful owners of the land. And look, everything we do is done to drive sales, get talkability, and make sure we deliver a great ROI for our farmers. But in the process of that, if we can do something great for society and really, really put a really great point of view out there that the government's too scared to do, that a lot of people out there wouldn't have the balls to go out there and take on, we feel really fucking good about that. Especially when you work in advertising. In advertising, you're selling products, you're convincing people to buy shit they don't need, eat food they don't need, all that kind of stuff. But if you can, with that, if you can do it with a really great cultural message, something that's going to do something good. We're not going to solve the problem of Australia Day. Okay, we're not going to change the date. We can't. We're the MLA. We're not political. Howie's always very clear that we're not political. We can't be political. But we can go out there with a point of view that's on our brand strategy and really try and push it in. Do you want to just talk?
Yeah, well, you give me the fucking microphone.
No. Again, on this one, we got heaps and heaps of hate mail. Okay, people writing into us, idiots from their private email addresses, and then you just look at them on LinkedIn and you find out, they're the head of some company or they're in television somewhere, and they're quite respectable jobs, but they're emailing us abuse from a very right-wing perspective on Australia. We had Pauline Hanson calling us ratbags, which is fucking absolute highlight, which we're going to put on every case study in the world. And it's just, it couldn't make us prouder that we've been part of that we've pissed off the right end of society, but we've done it for a good reason. We've done it because the message needs to get out there. It's really important for our culture to move on, but for the brand as well. If we're serious about being about unity and bringing people together, then we need to tackle this issue as a brand. We can't just pretend it does not exist. And we had a lot of conjecture. I remember being in the sports bar at the the Star Hotel, the Star Casino, after we'd won the Effies, and how he was pretty drunk. His shirt was unbuttoned all the way pretty much down to his belly button, and he was loose. He had a tie wrapped around his head. And we're just saying we've got to take on the Indigenous issue. And, you know, we weren't into, you weren't into it at the beginning, but we had to talk around, we had to find a way through. And rightfully so, it's a sensitive issue, you know. Even internally, we were fucking going at each other over this. How do we do it properly? We were really divided over it. But we worked together. We worked with the right Indigenous consultants to do it, to make sure we weren't going to piss anyone off. But we found out we're always going to piss someone off because there's no consensus in Indigenous Australia, first and foremost. So that was going to be tough. But, you know, we just wanted to put a really good stake in the ground and say, this is what we're going to do. And it got leaked on BuzzFeed. An older script got leaked on BuzzFeed just before 3 months before launch, 2 months before launch? Yeah, November, just before launch. So it tried to derail it as well. And that was an Indigenous performer leaking it out as well, from what we know, just because their elders didn't agree with it or there was some sort of controversy with it. So it's a pretty hot topic, but let's quickly go through it.
First air. Hey, what do you reckon? Cracking spot. Fire up the barbie.
Anyone else coming?
Oh, beautiful spot like this, it'll be packed before you know it.
Oh, here we go.
Did you organise the chips and dips?
Yeah.
Great spot.
Oh, thank you.
How long have you guys been here?
Since forever, mate.
Hey, where you mob from?
We, sir, are from Great Britannia. We are the first fleet.
Yeah, not quite, mate.
Bonjour. Oh, my God, it's the French.
Fromage.
It's the Germans. At least they brought their own.
Who's bringing the ice?
How many bags do we need, Dougie? Keep shipping, Shackles. It's going to be big. Oh, fiddlesticks.
My charge rod. Where'd you get those?
This week.
What's this? The 16th First Fleet.
Oi, it's the Italians, the Greeks, and the Serbians?
Hey, mate, do you know where the backyard is?
Got about 4,000 k's of it out here. Need a wicket?
Trust me, we need one of these around 2 a.m. Chili sauce? You did remember to let the neighbours know, right?
Yeah. So it's barbecue, eh, bro?
Hey, where should we put the chili bin?
I couldn't keep them away.
Should we crack a vegan joke?
Nah.
It's not a party without ice. Oh, fiddlesticks.
Hey guys, what's the occasion?
Do we need one?
Look, it's the boat people.
Hang on. Aren't we all boat people?
And you're welcome.
What is love? Look, it's the boat people.
Hello, Dale.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having us, guys. Great spot for a barbie.
Best in the world.
I've still got goosebumps because that the line there, great spot for a barbie, best place in the world, gets me every time. And I've probably watched it about 1 million times just to try and get the views up.
That's true.
It's true, and my son Baxter watches Boomerang over and over again just to try and get those views up. But this piece of film is quite long. It's probably sort of 2 minutes, 2 minutes 40, which for for advertising is kind of taboo, I guess you'd say. I got it back in there. But it was probably the hardest thing that we've ever done, certainly I've ever done. It was fraught with danger and trouble at every turn, starting from me being pretty hammered at the Effies because we'd cleaned up. I think I'd tackled Charlie Pickering and told him that I'd seen his set before and he was getting paid a lot of money, so it'd be fucking funny. And he wasn't. And I was like, I saw this in the comedy festival, you dick. So I basically tackled the MC that night, then won 3 gold Effies in the Grand Effie. So I was hot. And so we were in the bar afterwards, which was probably the last place I needed to be when I was so loose. But we were kind of talking about this, and I was like, do you know what, are we the right people to bring this up? And I guess where we've evolved in a brand planning sense is we now look at what the conversations are in popular culture, and we believe that if handled the right way, we kind of have permission to talk about those things. And so this, we could spend an hour talking about all the problems we had here, but yeah, so we were working to evolve the script. We're working with Reconciliation Australia. We're working with Indigenous consultants to try and get the script to a place that they'd be happy, or at least not unhappy. And the script got leaked. So someone took a photo of it in the casting process and shared it with their elders, who then shared it with a journalist at BuzzFeed, who then leaked it out. And it was quite an old script, and there was parts in it, like the only way you know where the edge is to go past and then bring it back. And so there was some stuff in there that was well past the edge, but you kind of got to know where that extreme is if you're going to create work that's really going to be talked about. And that's one thing that we really do in all our development processes, is we kind of push it. And I have my foot and hand in their back going, go further, until we kind of go, and I go, oh, that's too far. And then we just bring it back like a notch. But so, that got out, and we had to try and tackle that. And then, a whole bunch of other shit. Anyway, on the day we were shooting, so we'd shot day one. The 2 hero actors had done a really great job. All the cameos were there. Wendell Sailor, how good's that? Hello Sailor, one of my favourites. And the guy started throwing the line, because it was all about the fact, we're all boat people, and he didn't like that, because the Dreamtime says that the Indigenous Australians are from the land. So the notion that everyone had arrived by boat, they didn't buy into. And we thought we tackled that in the script development process, but old mate still wasn't happy. So he just stopped delivering the lines. And Paul Middleditch, who was the director's arguably not the best planner in the country, but the best director in the country, and he was working with us on this, and he'd never had that happen before, right? He was like, Howie, what do I do? I was like, fucked if I know. Scotty didn't know what to do. No one knew what to do. So in the end, we're kind of having to adapt on the go to get this thing made. It was pretty tense. I don't have a great temper, so I had to sort of walk away. I was like, you guys sort this out. I went and had a coffee, which didn't help. But anyway, we got there, and we got it made. Reconciliation Australia were happy with the consultation process and really proud of the finished product, and shared it through their social channels. I'd spent a lot of time in the press in the subsequent weeks talking to left and right journalists. I was told I was pandering to the left and bowing to the right, and I didn't know where the fuck I was. But all I knew is it was the right thing to do. And, we feel like as a brand we were talking about stuff that Australians were talking about, and that's why it has been received the way it was. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of momentum comes in the years to come. I think you can expect that we will always advertise at that time of year. Our industry is so geared for production cycles now to have sheep and lamb available for that time of year. So we'll keep talking about interesting stuff, but I don't think we'll ever be talking about Australia Day again, because the only way we could get Indigenous Australia involved was to drop, I'm getting there, man, was to drop day. So now it's all about Celebrate Australia, the greatest place on earth. And that's going to be the platform that we can go forward with. It's unspoken that it's going to culminate in this particular day, but when the date changes, our production cycles aren't going to change straight away. So we're going to continue to use January as a sales period. We're just going to have to talk about different stuff. So it's kind of the first step in what we think is going to be where Australia goes in the years to come. And, we've got to move first as marketers to make sure we're staying ahead of the curve.
Cool. Overtime.